Good evening, everybody. I hope you liked that unexpected and overly dramatic starting music. We've got a few people in here, so the lovely Jessie Quill, Sir Wedgie just sneaks in. Akadak is heading to the shower. I hope you enjoy yourself. I will try to speak slightly louder so that you can hear me in the nice echo chamber. This is the one thing, right? Everybody talks about how nice they sound seeking in the shower. I think it's because of that echoey effect inside of it, so have a good one. Carney, how's it going? T. Clark? I don't know what damn Twitch is doing to you, but I have a suspicion that it's probably related to all the nonsense I run into. Jessie Quill's hosting me for viewers. Wonderful. Thank you very much for the host, Jessie Quill. For those of you who don't know, you haven't been watching, but no. Jessie Quill is a member of Team Panda, one of the earliest, certainly one of the most experienced, one of the most talented. I think everybody works very hard on the team, but with hers, you can definitely see the most direct relationship between the effort that gets put into the stream that she puts on and just in terms of seeing the quality of the broadcast. I always have nice things to say, and it's for a reason. She is, I think, one of my favorite broadcasters to watch in general. I think she is one of the broadcasters that the established ones, so look at the people who are partnered, take a look and see who they're watching. It's probably going to be Jessie Quill. And I think there's very good reasons for that. She's somebody who puts a lot of effort into her casts. Has apparently not been feeling very well recently. But we will hope her a speedy recovery, not just because she's not such a nice person. Hang on, I think I'm missing an expansion here. Oh god, okay. Well, this gives me a chance to sing the praises of Jessie Quill. I was gonna say, we want a speedy recovery, not just, whoa, I wanted to leave. Calm down, game. One, because she's a nice person, and ideally you would like nice people not to be sick, but more importantly, because that means I get something awesome to watch every day. So, if you guys have not followed her yet, she is a very great friend of the stream. She's a fantastic contributor on Team Panda. And, okay, I'm going crazy. I had all the expansions loaded. But just, somebody who I can't recommend enough, and is somebody who's helped me get started on Twitch myself. So, and I've also had the pleasure of exchanging some messages with her. So, I get an insight to the person behind the cast. And I can tell you that she is every bit as lovely to speak to in person as she is on the cast. Sir Wedgie, how you doing tonight? Oh, Moblord. Moblord's here. Carney, funny coincidence. Remember that Easter egg from last week, the son of the foreman king of Frisia, which was conquered by the Franks? The guy has a strong claim. Last Patch Paradox landed him in... I'm so bad at pronouncing these things. Ostfriesland. You can now play with him and liberate Frisia. That is awesome, Carney. It's really neat that you heard that. Jessie Quill probably overstates my sweetness. Exchanges of messages equals drunk nudes. I apologize, Jessie Quill. Sometimes I can't help myself. No, Carney, I really like hearing that. Moblord, I haven't seen you in here before. Good to see you again. Moblord is one, so while I'm spending all the time talking about Jessie Quill, Moblord is not just a mod for Jessie Quills, but is a mod for a number of channels. Busy man on Twitch. So having him slum it in this broadcast is something of an honor. I hope you're doing well, sir. Alright, so what this could be is just the absence of the Horse Lords here. I'm going to take a quick minute and talk about the map, because there are a couple of subtle changes that have occurred in the patch. Notwithstanding Carney's very astute observation. This is, by the way, one of the things that I like about streaming Crusader Kings 2, is that it's a game which Moblord never slums it. One of the nice things about streaming Crusader Kings 2, so the one drawback about the game is, of course, its complexity and its strategy orientation is always going to attract a certain kind of viewer which has to see everything done quote-unquote right. Everybody kind of knows what these people are like. You know, I don't handle them well. I try, but it's something I can get better at. But once you get past that, like in the end, I'm never going to be able to give them what they want. So it's just something I kind of need to accept. But what I think is really neat about this is you also get people who are genuinely interested in the history, especially because I am not very good on this time period. I'm a little bit better with what's covered in Europa Universalis 4. So to get little stories like what Carney just shared, it's really nice to actually be able to get a little bit of perspective like that. This is one of the nice things about the internet, of course, is that while you may think you're an expert on something, just spending a minute on Wikipedia or an internet forum and you're going to have at least 15 guys tell you how wrong you are. Now, Carney obviously didn't do that, but he did share some little interesting trivia, which Paradox finally decided to incorporate into a patch. So it's kind of neat. We'll probably not play him until we are done our story of the Carling Dynasty. We are no longer playing Charlemagne, but we are playing King Richard. Carlemagne died after a fairly disastrous run. We managed to get through a lot of the problems from the previous playthrough, but as you can see, the kingdom is in revolt. We have lands to take away from our brother. We've got 2 realms which declared their independence. And then if we want to take Saxony, Saxony's gotten a whole lot bigger. So it's going to be a challenging playthrough, but we have gotten past the point where it seemed like I was going to have to reset the game. Leap Paste, how you doing tonight? Sorry I didn't see your stream for that long. I was relying on public internet while I was coming home drunk. I'll actually maybe get a little biography out of the way too. So, for those of you who didn't know, Sir Wedgie spilled the beans. It was my birthday on the 15th. And then I had my celebration for that yesterday. Now, it's a very interesting sort of division between what happened in terms of online and here. Everybody was extremely kind with their words, and I got something from Seriously Clara, who runs Team Panda. I got a copy of Penumbra from her, which I thought was very nice. And just generally, a very warm sentiment communicated on that day, which is really, it's wonderful. So then I go and I decided I was going to do the Jackbox Party Pack. So at EXP Bar, they will host a Jackbox Party Pack and play it live in the restaurant. So I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity to show all my friends, you know, I can use the emotional blackmail of my birthday to actually finally get some people to show up on this. Thank you very much, Jesse Quill. CPO Williams, sorry, I missed you in chat. Where are you? Hey, Chalk Kite and Ewok say hi. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for communicating that. Yours is on Monday. Happy pre-birthday to you, CPO Williams. Man, I need to start playing the game. There's so many good people here already. So I'll just wrap up this this story, and we'll start talking about the changes in the new patch as I see them. I haven't read any change logs or that, but I already see a difference in this menu. But in any case, you guys even now are being extremely kind in terms of just, you know, the birthday wishes, the well-wishing, and definitely please extend that to CPO as well. And you know, I'm kind of like, okay, well, this will be a chance for me to finally show some of my friends EXP Bar. They're probably not going to go to a video game bar on their own. I'm more or less the only gamer in my in real life friends that I know. But with that in mind, the Jackbox Party Pack is pretty accessible. It's really fun, so I thought I'd invite everybody over to play it. And literally one person showed up. But it was... Everybody has at least one friend like this, and if you don't, I feel quite bad, because these are the people who make life less terrible when you're not feeling great. Although I didn't feel bad on my birthday at all. The people at EXP are great. They actually gave me a Megaton, which I believe is a tequila and Jaeger, kind of balanced on a glass. You lift the tequila and the Jaeger drops in, and you down the horrible concoction and feel like $1 million, or 1 million bottle caps. But with that in mind, it's kind of like, really, guys, one person shows up. But as it turns out, this is the friend who is the one who well, other than the fact that this is the kind of person who shows up when nobody else does, it was a very wonderful evening spent with somebody that I've known for a while. Actually, I was just thinking of it, Jesse Quill, that girl you saw in the pictures, that was who stopped by, and she works for Ernst & Young. She's a very smart, very capable individual whose time is at a premium, and so I think having somebody like that who will take the time when maybe others haven't made for an extremely enjoyable evening of poutine, popcorn, dirty jokes on a large screen, Nuka-Cola, and then obviously you go to another place for drinks afterwards. It was wonderful. Alright, enough mush. So, we're continuing on with this Carling playthrough. We made some screw-ups, which I'll maybe talk about at the beginning. In this opening menu, we still have all the same things that we know. So you've got independent realms, you've got counts, dukes, kings. If you want empires, you just go by realms. Religion hasn't changed. Culture hasn't changed either. Of course, we're becoming French. But here's a new one. Governments. So, in this case here, you can see, I mean, at this point here, it's almost a little bit like a culture or religious map. If you take a look, mostly Muslim areas have Iqta. I don't actually know the proper pronunciation of things. By the way, happy Eid for, I suspect probably the Muslim demographic is very small on this stream. But with that in mind, if for Muslims watching, I apologize for the House of Rose playthrough. But in this case, it marks the end of Ramadan. For those of you not familiar with the holiday Eid al-Fitr, it's the end of Ramadan. It's been about a month. I think it's 29 or 30 days of fasting. And it's, of course, worth noting that based on the calendar that is used, Ramadan this year fell in the summer. So while the sun is up, people are fasting, and I have to suspect that one that falls in this period is a particularly difficult one. So today is the day of fasting, big holiday. I don't know a lot about Islam, but I do know today is a special holiday, and naturally we'll communicate that also to our religious brethren down in the south, who I will maybe seize the lands from. We'll start maybe with Spain. Sir Wedgie demands 1 cat picture as payment. By the way, thank you. So I noticed that I still have the survey up, but I'll close that down soon. I'll give everybody the results. Some of the surveys weren't 100% complete, which kind of makes sense because I know one of the sections was quite long, even though it was near the end. Congratulations to those of you who got to see the... Hey! I am so sorry, Jesse. Let me turn off my notifications. Yes, thank you to those of you who got to the end and got to see the secret picture at the end. I will try to make sure that I have a ready-made picture of a cat for all future surveys. For those of you who didn't complete it the whole way, I got the stuff that I needed anyway, so let's hit the play button. Well, thank God you didn't send one of my nudes back at me. I think I'd probably be off the Twitch terms of service in that case. Okay. Look at this broken empire. So just to give you guys some perspective in terms of where we are, you can bring up the de jure empires. So this is kind of what Francia is supposed to look like when we build it. Right now, we're going to have some trouble accomplishing that. We've got a little bit of territory which is still held by... this is Middle Francia, actually, so this is my brother's. I don't need to worry about that. So in this case here, these borders are more or less where they need to be. We don't have Brittany, but that's not a big problem. The things that are really going to keep us from forming the empire is the independence of Bourbon and Aquitaine. Now, of course, the nice thing about these, it looks like the Duke of Toulouse. Wait a minute, it's not... Is it Toulouse that's that duchy? Yeah, it is the duchy. So the Duke of Toulouse looks like he's already doing what he can to seize this, which is nice in one sense, but on the other hand, this is going to mean that one of my vassals is a little more powerful than I'm accustomed to. Prestige and piety bugged. I'm not going to complain about 1 million prestige. Okay, excellent, Jesse Quill. Yeah, I should be a little bit more conscious of this. Oh, hang on, this is going to be a problem. I might actually have to reset this playthrough. So let's just take a note here. Like, so I mean, obviously, I'll take the good and then I'll refuse to take the bad with it. So I've got 1 million prestige. GG noobs. I've got 468,000 piety. So these are the ways that the game is scored. This will easily be higher than any other. Higher than any other playthrough that I've done. The revolutions that we have right now, we're in progress, and what is occurring is we have got a guaranteed win on the West Frankian Revolt, and we've got a guaranteed lose on the Middle Frankian Revolt. I'm also a little bit curious about what's happening, and we've lost all of our plot power on this. So what I'm going to do, I am going to unpause. My condition on this, I don't mind, like, I wasn't really looking for the scores here. My condition on this, though, is I can't lose this rebellion, because this means that I'm going to be spending yet another playthrough trying to rebuild the Empire. If this happens, I'm just going to go back to a regular starting point. I'll talk a little bit about setting up the game, and we'll just do a game as Charlemagne again. So I apologize for that. I'm going to see what happens when I unpause. I don't want to assume that this is going to result in def lose on this, but it's not looking good. I suspect that I'm probably going to have to reset this game because of this bug. Now the save wasn't actually corrupted. Like, so in this case, if I was playing the Horse Lords expansion, this would no longer be an Iron Man playthrough. But in this case here, again, I don't want things to be more difficult than they have to be on an already kind of weird playthrough. Oh, and apparently they've got... Okay, well, I got an achievement. That's nice. Apparently they've also got 5,000 troops they didn't have before. Hey, I'm getting all the achievements. Oh, wait a minute. I think they did actually have 4,000 troops because we were saving these and we were thinking of using mercenaries. So we may be able to turn this. Alright. T-Cloud completed the survey thing. The only thing you remember is not choosing 4 when you were told, because you felt like being difficult. Yeah, I found your entry. You actually left a comment confessing your sins. So, thank you for that. Otherwise, what the hell is going on here? There's a 1 million man revolt happening in. Okay, guys, let's get a poll. Do we want to continue playing this clearly broken game and seeing what insanity awaits us, or should we maybe just call it and start fresh? Because I have a feeling if we're getting million-man armies out of... Oh, wait a minute, and we've conquered... Okay, we've just conquered Saxony, too. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Do you want to see what this game looks like when it goes completely stupid, or... should we just start over from the beginning and not invest ourselves too much in something that's going to get ripped apart at the seam? $624 piety, you called BS. Indeed, Potato Spartan. Yeah, the game is bugged. Vote restart, probably have the opinion bug too. Oh, what's the opinion bug? They love me! They really love me! Okay, yeah. Oh, people of other religions? He's an infidel. I just can't get enough of him. Plus 2 million opinion for being the wrong religion. Well, it is Ian, so... Alright. GG game. Well done. I'm going to keep this save file, because this seems like a... This seems like a wonderful little trip down the rabbit hole, to be completely honest, but... yeah, let's do this from the very beginning. Alright. Here rests the House of Carling. They got a higher score than I can ever hope to achieve in this game. Yep. Best Crusader Kings 2 stream here today, guys. Game state is corrupted. Please start the game. Well, I'm not playing multiplayer, but let's do this one more time. Now I'm going to actually have to do a private game and actually earn these achievements. I love those emotes, by the way. Alright, sorry guys, I know we're probably about half hour into a cast, which has not succeeded. By the way, I'm not sure if I ever want to do this as like a Friday night thing, but I do have this. Game of Thrones mod. It's actually, I think it's quite good. Yeah, it's. I was gonna say, like, I think watching the mayhem would actually be really fun to watch in one sense, but on the other hand, one of the things I'm trying to do with this playthrough is go from 769 to 1453. So if I run into something just completely borked, I don't want to find out like after several hundred years of game time, I'm not actually going to be able to do what I wanted. Multi is bugged for everyone right now. It's on yours as well. Well, I notice it didn't shade out when I reset it. CPO Williams, this might be a bit of... Oh, your buddy won't be getting in tonight. So evening will be the only time that you can play tomorrow. That's good to know then, actually. So I'll like send you a Twitter or a... Oh, hang on. Multiplayer is done again. This might be a problem for tomorrow, CPO Williams. It looks like, I'm just going to do one last diagnostic here. So it looks like multiplayer works when you open a fresh game. What is Steam trying to tell me? Ooh. This might be a problem for a CPO Williams. I'll go with my friend's recommendation of an 8 p.m. start. I think we're in different time zones, though, so that might be a bit late for you. If it is, just let me know a good alternative time, and we'll work it out. But because there is going to be a multiplayer game tomorrow, I do want to take the second to see what's going on with MP. Okay. You guys won't be able to join this game, so... Eight is 10 for you? Okay, so it looks like as long as I don't go back, I should be okay. So just, well, keep this in mind, CPO Williams, we may have to reschedule just in case the game is not as functional as I thought. Hey, Akakadak, you missed absolutely nothing other than a 1 million man revolt in a completely bugged game. I'm saving that save, so actually maybe I'll just play it on stream another time. But we will make an effort to do a real playthrough, and the other thing we can do, I know people were looking for Charlemagne. Now, I think Jazzpoo wanted this idea of me taking an Irish tribe and turning it into a merchant republic, which I'd be happy to do as well. But I'm guessing we want to do Charlemagne, right, chat? Independent country in the north. That's this one? You're right, that is new. Not the easiest start. See, yeah, and Carney, this is something I never would have noticed, had you not stopped by this chat and give me that little bit of history. That's actually that's really cool. All right. I'm going for whatever I want. Charlie's cool. All right. I got nasty words last time about how, I got nasty words about apparently how easy a France start is, but I don't care. Alright, if I was going to do a proper conversation about how to start a game, I probably should have talked a little bit about what was going on in that, Oh, goody! The tutorial. I probably should have talked a little bit about how the custom game map works, but there you go. By the way, isn't this nice that Paradox keeps charging us over $20 for this new content, which clearly keeps the game in a workable and non-buggy state. I thought the point of a patch was an improvement. Does anybody have the new DLC now? One person does. I think he goes by the name Cloud9 Fan in this chat now. So he got Horse Lords, and he said he was really liking it. Personally, I don't believe... Like, the way I think about Crusader Kings 2, as you probably know from my bitchy tweets, is that this is the most successful early access game, which apparently, when it is finished, will cost over $200. And this is the big one for me, is like, if you want to have the experience that you're seeing on this stream right now, you'd pay the retail price of about $200 for it. So you don't. You wait for the game to go on sale, get like 70, 80% off, and you pay about 40 or 60. But this is the trick, right? Is that basically this game never goes on sale. Your choices are normal price for a game or ridiculous price for a game. And I mean, everybody will talk about consumer choice. I definitely believe about consumer choice, but this is not a $200 game. Let's be completely honest with it. Oh, Carney's got it as well. You haven't tried out Nomadic, though, because you've been having fun playing the Frisian guy. Cool. Nomads conquered the whole Byzantine Empire within 50 years and triggered the Crusades early. This is the fun, too, is when you take a look at the map of a Crusader Kings 2 game, it definitely doesn't turn out as... Oh, this is interesting. So I've never seen this before. I've chosen to play as a Frankish Catholic king. Frankish culture affects no special features. Feudal government revolves around the oath between liege and vassal, and feudal lords can only direct so many holdings before they must start to rely on vassals, so loyalty may vary. There are several succession laws to pick between, each with its own merits. The centralization law controls the maximum size of your domain and the number of direct vassals that you can have. If you should convert to a religion in the Muslim group, your government will change to Iqta. You can hold castle and fort holdings without penalty. You can hold tribal holdings without penalties for provinces with your culture. You can build castle, city, and temple and fort holdings. Didn't know about forts. You can revoke titles from tribal government vassals of another religion without objections from other vassals. Tribal government vassals are not included in the vassal limit calculation. Catholicism is one of the oldest branches of Christianity, and the one that has the biggest impact on the history of Europe. Game, please. The formal head of the religion is the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Catholic bishops may pay tax to the Pope rather than to their secular liege. Catholic rulers may set up anti-popes. The Pope can excommunicate Catholic characters. The Pope can grant divorces. The Pope can grant the invasion casus belli. The Pope can grant claims on titles. The Pope can call for a crusade. Rulers can order adult, unlanded courtiers to take the vows, and there is always a pope, landed or not. It is not HD speed bump time. Yeah, just equal. So like the way that you look at the actual price of this game is to say it's like what I'm playing has all of the DLC up to this most recent one that was created. And in order to get that experience, if you're paying the retail price, it's about $215. The game is not worth $250. It's a very good game, But the thing is that while you can say it's like, well, you know, the money goes towards supporting the development or something like that, like in the end, if people were to watch this and say, I want that experience, they're spending over $200 for it. Now the vanilla game isn't bad. That's actually what we're going to wind up playing in a multiplayer game on Saturday, is the vanilla game, because my friend doesn't have any of the DLC. But it just, like, again, you can think about the difference between two developers, right? You've got Amplitude Studios, which made Dungeon of the Endless and Endless Space and Endless Legend, and I keep complaining about their tutorials as well. But in their case, except for one DLC for each of their two flagship titles, Endless Legend and Endless Space, the games have been getting free updates for a really long time, and like genuine content. Kerbal Space Program as well. Lots of new and original content coming out even after the game has been taken out of early access. And these games cost, you know, I think the most expensive is Kerbal at about $40. We will be playing Kerbal fairly soon, by the way. Not tonight, obviously, but in the future. So it just kind of gives you a bit of an idea in terms of what the priorities of these two studios are. If you look at a game like Terraria, even though a lot of people are just buying this game on, you know, like a $2 Steam sale or something like that, they still put out this massive content update, and it's one of the top sellers on Steam again. So I think there is a sound business reason for making some updates free. Now, obviously, you know, is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? Not everybody has to give away the farm, but I think, I've talked about this a few times, I think Paradox's business practices regarding DLC and just generally their behavior with customers in general is not as good as some of the others. I'll also note too, like taking a look at the new patch, like I didn't have these little artifacts here before. These are bugs that were introduced in the new patch as well. So, I mean, we're not necessarily seeing improvements all the time. Like, this is probably the best example. What we're seeing from this place, even though, you know, we're being charged for these, we're not necessarily seeing across-the-board updates. I never had this visual bug before the most recent patch. You think at least with EU4, the host has the DLC, so will the players. That's actually really nice to know, Minecraft 1000. I have everything for Europa except for Common Sense. I have no idea why people don't like that title, by the way. Most of the Europa DLC is actually named after kind of these famous works of political philosophy. Oh, and I don't have a shield anymore. Well, you all can imagine the Carling crest. But yeah, I mean, it's, I don't mean to sound too ungrateful. Like, obviously gamers are a really entitled bunch. But with that in mind, I mean, would you pay $200 for this? Not me. And as Jesse Quill points out, you know, all those history buffs rolling in money. So, we are back to Charlemagne. It's funny that we got a tutorial on this one, but we didn't get the setup in terms of what the story was about. Effectively, what we have right now is a kingdom that's been divided in two. West Francia and Middle Francia in this game have been kind of turned into these separate... Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if the border got changed because of that save file or not, because I remember what you start off with is actually a lot larger than... Okay, doesn't matter. Axe so hungry right now? Like Dijon, where the mustard comes from? I'm assuming that is the name, or the original name for it. Speed bump time, torrent and CK2, and all the add-ons up to Horse Lord. Not seeing these bugs. Oh, wonderful! So if you don't actually pay the developer, you don't actually run into the glitching. I should note, I am playing this on a Mac though, so it's probably not necessarily a PC problem. But again, if you're going to release for a platform, you need to support that platform. Yeah, you know what? Just one day I should play as the good Germanic peoples. Jesse is I believe part German, right? That's not your full heritage. Anyways. There's a reason for Jesse to love the good Aryan stock. CPO's working towards a history I had no idea you were going for your PhD, CPO Williams. I must be human. You've mentioned that you were into history before, but I can't remember you mentioning your study. So I apologize for the historical inaccuracies. Wait, those two different views in the map, what are the differences? 2/3 German. Are you talking about like the blue and the gray area, or are you talking about like all of these different views? Speedbump loves playing as German either in Bavaria or under one of the Carlings and getting some land and going rogue 70 years in. I should actually maybe note Speedbump time. Welcome to the stream. This will be I'll call this my second Iron Man playthrough of Crusader Kings 2. We started one as the Carlings, but I don't know if you were here for the bug, but the bug with the most recent patch caused some problems. So terrain and stuff, you see it now. Okay, great, yeah. So yeah, we'll take this from the very beginning. So this is going to be a little bit of recap for you guys, so I apologize for that, but I think there's something to be said. I quite like this title. The game is very complex, and there's not a lot of games that are willing to sort of wear their complexity on their sleeves like these Paradox titles. And so I think it would actually be worthwhile to take a minute here to talk a little bit about how you set up a game and how you go from having sort of this big, unwieldy game in front of you to sort of setting yourself up so that either one, you can learn as you go, or two, you just wind up making effective decisions. So this is kind of the map as you see it. It's a nice 3D map of Europe. I think the map gets extended if you pay for the DLC. So I think this is a slightly smaller map than what the game is capable of. But effectively you're looking at Europe, some of the Slavic countries, India's added to this now, and you have North Africa. D. Clark would like to see how things would go if the D. Clark did a full playthrough of the terrain map exclusively. Wow. Yeah, this is one thing. I know I talked about this before, but there seems to be kind of this weird interest in maps from economists, and one of the things that I can say, I've had some experience with has now been the visual depiction of data. And that, in the end, is what a map is. If you know anything about maps, there are some decisions that you need to make and what abstraction you use with your projection, because portraying a spherical object on a piece of paper or a computer monitor is difficult. Well, I mean, the spherical object isn't difficult on a computer monitor, but generally, if you want generally you want something that's a little bit more comprehensible to you. And so in the end, you need to make some abstractions. And of course, anybody who's seen The West Wing knows the relative sizes of Africa and Europe are a little bit wonky when you consider the most popular map projection. But it doesn't mean it isn't without its uses. You need to make your decisions in terms of what you show. And so when you're playing a game like this, what it comes down to, in addition to the fact that, this is a neat little role-playing game in some ways, that you can look at this as just a whole bunch of different provinces on a board, and you can say, hey, Dijon, that's where the mustard comes from. But yeah, T. Clark points out that it's a pretty map, and for practical purposes, it's useless. Right now, what you're getting is a very good depiction of the geography, and because they are on, I think it's called the Clausewitz 2.5 engine, or something like that. Anyways, they're using the most updated version of the engine, so you can get right in there, and you can see these nice details of of the mountain ranges. When the seasons change, you'll see the differences. Like, this isn't not a bad looking game, but where it may be relevant to me that there's a forest here, notice that this information can be communicated to you in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, telling you that it's a forest. If I want to go to, let's say, Gelre, I still don't know how to pronounce this. It says that it's plains. Now, there may be strategic uses for knowing this information, but this isn't necessarily information that I need to be depicted visually. And so one of the ways that the game allows you to manage all of this information that it's throwing at you is different perspectives. To me, the most useful one is to pick realms, and this will just show you independent realms in the game. So this is effectively this is probably actually an academic term which I'm going to butcher, but I'm using this in just the literal meaning of the words, which is to say that this is the political geography of Europe right now. This big blue blob is my territory, and this big gray blob below is for family members of mine. Lombardy is an entirely different unit, as is Umayyad, and you can go all over. You can see very large areas which are controlled by a group, particularly the Abbasids. You can see what remains of the Roman Empire, the eastern part, the Byzantine Empire, what they hold here that's represented through purple. You can see that we don't have England as we know it yet, although we do have Scotland. Ireland has yet to be formed. Well, sorry, it's not exactly Scotland yet, but you can see a lot more unification here than England, which is going to take a while. I also believe they've redone... This looks a little bit different from what I remember it. So in this case here, this to me is useful because most of my interactions are going to be between different political entities, not necessarily between, you know, two different pieces of geography. And so this is sort of the default screen that I can go into. This game wants you to make you travel to Europe. T. Clark says to get Euro Truck Simulator 2. I actually have Euro Truck Simulator 2. One thing I've been thinking of is when I want to do like one of my monologues on things, is to actually load up Euro Truck Simulator and just, you know, go out on the open road so you guys can have something a little bit more compelling to look at while I voice my opinions. So weird not seeing a sword next to you. Wedgie, you should be coming here for fun. I don't want to do this to you. I'm still not looking for mods. I know you all got to see Alex, my friend from high school. He is technically a mod, but until you guys told him the commands, he was an ineffective mod precisely because I never told him how to do it. Thanks, Zach. Actually, I think I'll come up with like a good rant on something. I'll use it as a trial. So this is, to me, I think this is one of the most useful maps which you have, which is rather than focusing on the geography, which may be very pretty, but not necessarily tells you the most relevant information to make your decisions, an idea of how it is, how the kingdom is divided in terms, or the map is divided between these different kingdoms and duchies, to me has a little bit more use because of its, just again because it's a nice shorthand rather than like clicking on an individual king and saying it's like, okay, where does the border lie on this? The trick is to being a good mod is a good rulebook, honestly. Oh, that's an extremely good way of putting it, Jesse Quill. So I'm glad I didn't go. There's some channels that I go into and there's like more mods than people watching, which always struck me as a little bit weird. I know some people do like mod as a way to get people to be coming in, but honestly, like I'd like it if people are coming by to have some fun watching. I know it's a slow start for today, but whenever I start a new game, it's kind of slow anyway. So, or System Jock's case, any rule book. Yeah, it's anarchy here. But yeah, in this. When we talk about visual information, I think 9 times out of 10, I can get what I need by looking at the political divisions, and then I can get when I want extra details, I can click on them to get them. Now, this isn't always the case. Maybe you want to see what people think of you. I think very highly of myself. I effectively have no relations outside of my immediate sphere of influence, and my Muslim neighbors to the south are more or less, like, they're indifferent. They like me about as much as my brother likes me. Religion in some ways isn't necessarily that useful, but in other ways can make all the difference. You can call religious wars in this game, and so I can see here that if I wanted to declare war on Saxony, just the simple fact that they worship a different god from me is sufficient. We also have the case here where Spain is not Muslim, but they are under a Muslim government, and so again we can declare holy war here. There is eventually, well, there's some conversion which is going on here. Clearly the Reconquista is not going to be happening for quite some time, particularly EU4. But in this case here, again, looking at the map from a religious perspective is helpful, one, in terms of possible causes for war, but also heresy can occur within your own borders, which in turn is going to result in additional unrest. And so, while the religious view is not necessarily going to be, you know, your go-to menu, it can actually give you some really important information at key times. You can also find religious capitals. So we've got Qom. The most obvious one would very likely be Jerusalem, which of course is the source of quite a bit of difficulty. Namely because everybody has it. You'll notice here, if we take a look at the Byzantine Empire, we've currently got sort of the great division in Eastern Orthodoxy. So we've got the Eastern Orthodox religion here, we've got the Iconoclasts, and then we've got the Paulicians, which in this case the game models as heresies of Eastern Orthodoxy. There's clearly no Protestantism in this game. There's sort of the, I guess, I don't even know if I can call them intellectual forebears of Protestantism, but you have sort of these protests and heresies against Catholicism, but of course Protestantism becomes a mechanic all on its own in Europa Universalis 4 as the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation occur. Is it possible to turn a Catholic kingdom into a Muslim one, or vice versa? Yes, it is. I don't know quite how religious conversion works as you. I can't wake up and become Muslim. One way that you could turn a Catholic kingdom into a Muslim was conquering it. But I don't know if the game will ever allow a sequence of events that has you convert to Islam because you find it a particularly convincing argument. But you can definitely convert. Like, one thing I'm curious in is, I know if I were to declare war on Saxony for a holy war and it were to go particularly poorly, I have a feeling that they would just be able to say, okay, we're Christian now, and then I'm not able to conquer them. Burn the Heretic, who also happens to be my biggest opposition for leadership of this country. Ak, you should switch to decaf. Ak knows how I play this game. So again, the religious menu doesn't necessarily fall under the... this is Canterbury, by the way. I'm pretty sure it's Canterbury. It's not necessarily one that you will always run into, but you can clearly see that depending on the perspective that you need, depending on the information that you need, this is a map, this is a way of redrawing the same territory in a way that you get the information you need. Just the same way that I think most subway systems don't necessarily care about the literal proximity between stations. You're probably not going to have, like... So if there's one connection which is twice as long as the one before it, you're probably not going to see a line which is twice as long on a subway map, because what people care about is the order of the stops, not necessarily the actual physical distance between them. Akakadak can't even spell decaf except in this one instance. Nice. It's because you have the visual aid just above you. Another really interesting one is the culture view. Now again, this is one which probably is a little bit more helpful in terms of judging things like possible revolution or difficulties in terms of getting your getting people to become vassals. So it'd be nice if I could just, vassalize Brittany and not have to have a fight, but the fact that they're Bretons and I am currently Frank, and eventually I will become French, it's that's an impediment to it. Clearly, if I look down, the Berbers are not suddenly just going to decide, you know what, Germans are right. We need to convert our culture and our heritage to this. And just like these things become issues in history, this becomes an issue in the game. The fact that you have a different culture for somebody, the very famous origins of barbarian being the ancient Greeks just talking about the people who spoke different languages, which always just sounded like bar, 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 bar to them. These are insight, or maybe not insights, but these are things that have marked the shape of our language, kind of have had a very large influence on history. I tend not to look at a country and say, it's like, okay, I need to think about their culture while I'm invading it, otherwise I'm going to have too many revolutions. Usually I just want, I want the land, I takes the land. But it is something that, like, they didn't just put this in the game so that you can have a fancy title and you can say, haha, Charlemagne is a Frank. There is actually something that this game will do to you if you are a different culture from what you should be. And there's also space for changes in culture. The Franks do eventually become French in this game, and I know the button I can press to change that. Why not? I'll convert to the German culture. Super efficient. Pomeranian, like the puppies? You have these sections on them. I don't know that much about Pomerania, to be completely honest, but yeah, I have to assume the name Pomeranian from the dog is a reference to the culture. So, and again, it's another. What you can also see here, what is fun to do. There's so there's like a conspiracy website. I think it's called Infowars.com. So one thing that they did was they posted this like future projection of the new Islamic Caliphate, referring to ISIS, also known as IS or ISIL. Personally, I always just fall back to IS because they all have always called themselves the Islamic State, and just depending on what territory they have, the name seems to change. But they actually took the map from Victoria 2, and they just like painted over all these areas they thought they were going to make black, but they used these like the borders created in Victoria 2, which don't actually have any relationship to the actual geography, like the historical divisions of these territories. Now again, people who go to a website like that are probably not going to be worried that much about the history. They're going to be saying it's like, oh, George Bush funded ISIS or something like that. But it's kind of neat to see the impact that that Victoria had, and in some ways, I think that game makes sense to use. I think something like Crusader Kings 2 or Europa Universalis 4 will give you a nicer looking map. But when you think about a game like Victoria, and sort of how it, you've got the series where you start with Crusader Kings, you've got Europa Universalis 4, then you move to Victoria for the Industrial Revolution, and finally you conclude with Hearts of Iron. If you've got a game that's sort of ending with World War I, this is where you get figures like Lawrence of Arabia, this is where you get sort of the divisions and the political agreements that divided up the Middle East the way that we know it right now, which may not actually have any respect for these differences that exist here. Of course, we don't necessarily have Armenia in the way that we know it historically, and of course, what happened to the Armenians is still a subject of great controversy and no small amount of political hand-wringing, just over simply calling what was clearly a genocide a genocide. Turkey, there are tremendous consequences to any politician that wants to try and call it the Armenian genocide. And you will notice that all US politicians are going to have a very precise wording in terms of how they deal with that issue, which in some ways I think is a great injustice to the Armenian people. But in this case, there are political imperatives which have caused people to give that a different name from what it actually was. There's some staticky sounds in the background, by the way, nothing too major but can be heard. Okay, let me just take... usually people know when I'm having mic problems, so I'm just going to do a full reset of all these, all my sound devices. Hopefully that fixes the static. Let me know if it doesn't. I will do my best. There's one other thing that I can try. I can just try and lighten up the burden on the system by closing a couple of other windows. The Armenian genocide is a really tragic thing. You only found out about it within the last few years. Couldn't believe what you were reading. Yeah. Okay, if you guys can let me know, based on this section, if it's gotten better. It sounds like it's from the game music. I don't actually hear it on my headphones, so I suspect that there's probably... Usually that's an indication that the system's a little stretched for resources. If you guys can just let me know, as of this statement, whether or not the static is gone. I will try one other thing if it comes down to it. So yeah, actually, I mean, I think it was the January-February issue of Foreign Affairs. There's a copy available in my public library, so if you guys are interested in that publication but don't want to pay for the subscription... by the way, it's the only magazine that I pay for. I think it's a very good one, but I think it's called The G Word or something like that, but it's a very good argument on the model, kind of the modern politics of calling it just genocide. Still hear it? It's better, but you can still hear it. Let me just take a second here, guys. I'm going to play around with something on my desktop. anything really to get me stopped talking about genocide is probably a good thing, so. Although I suppose in some ways that is also what the people who want to hide the actions of the past want, is you to stop talking about it, so. Maybe I'm better to keep talking about it. That's a sad, I mean, any genocide is a tragic thing. Who's that in the background? That is Vengeful Spirit from Dota 2, the first hero that I played and got good with, and a great character, and certainly very easy on the eyes. Oh, by the way, guys, I got something in Dota 2 I'm really happy with, but this isn't a Dota 2 cast, so maybe at the end I'll unpack my loot and I'll show you what I got, but... oh, and you know what, one more thing I'll do is, I'll just try resetting everything again. Alright, I hope that helps the static. I'm still a little cautious. I suspect it may not necessarily work. If it becomes too irritating, let me know. I'll do a proper reset. But I think this is the best that I can do with what I immediately have. She's fantastic support. You play her a good amount. Yeah, it's great. And she is super pretty. And more importantly, she has an Eastern European accent, which I kind of melt for. Not that other accents aren't great, and clearly I suspect anybody who does have an accent, and of course to them they're just speaking normally, it's really irritating to constantly hear, "Ah, I just love your accent." But, you know, there's something about an Eastern European accent is special. I don't care what you talk about, just keep talking. Yeah, sorry guys. I mean, for those of you looking for the Crusader Kings 2 content, I'm doing you a little bit of a disservice right now, because I'm definitely going over things that are very obvious to people. But I think this is actually, I think a new game is, it's a terrible thing to waste. And we do get to talk a little bit about the history. This is a chance for me to hear your guys' opinions and maybe some of the insights that you have from your own studies. I am actually doing some reading on history, and I can't remember if I told you or not, but I'm actually starting with a children's book. Because one of the funny things when you try to study history is that there's no, like, consider the dilemma of the historian who wants to do a general history of the world. If you, generally when you take an academic approach, when you want to study something seriously, you take a very narrow specialization and you research the hell out of it. So, a good example, a fascinating history book that I have is, I always get this date wrong. Just one second, I also want to get the author's name, so I'll be back in a quick second. Alright, this mighty tome that I have, 1688, The First Modern Revolution by Steve Pincus, which is about the Glorious Revolution where William of Orange goes from the Netherlands to become King of England. And of course there's the question, is this an invasion? Is this a revolution? We call it the Glorious Revolution, but what exactly was this? It's a fascinating book, it's a huge book, and it's dedicated to one very narrow piece of history, but there's a lot of significance behind what happened in that, and so it can be unpacked. Now, that's one... Oh my god, I'm not even on the game. I'm so sorry, guys. There we go. So, you know, if you can fill this big tome about one event, and of course that famous year of 1688, then, you know, what hope do you have of having a concise history of all history? I've got another book, World Politics Since 1945, of Peter Calvor-Caressy. Calvor-Caressy worked at MI5. He was active during World War II. I mean, if you want a guy who's going to know how politics has shaped the modern world, he's him. I actually found out about that book because I read his obituary in the New York Times, which is a really interesting way that you can find books to read. But in this case too, like that is a huge textbook that is dealing with the world after World War II. So, what hope do you have of trying to talk about prehistory up to the modern world and make sense and not leave out too many details? And so Ernst Gombrich, who's probably better known for his art history, I think he did a book called The Story of Art. He wrote a children's book called A Little History of the World. And it takes, certainly the voice of that book is addressed to a child. I don't expect that I'm necessarily going to see all of the specific details of how history worked. I'm not necessarily going to see the sorts of things that make me interested in history, but it seems to me that it's actually not a bad way to start going once you get over the fact that it's a children's book, simply because you are at least going to get the grand sweeping narrative, and then I can take the things that interest me and then I can start having a narrower focus. I can pick up equivalents of 1688 to subjects that I find interesting. So, for instance, I didn't have the same fascination with ancient Egypt that a lot of my friends did in middle school, but I have a great interest in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, hence, why I took some courses in classics. And specifically, they were philosophy-oriented, but Caesar's an interesting guy, right? So, you have to, if you're interested in Caesar, you're going to learn a thing or two about Roman politics, specifically the movement from the Old Republic to Empire. So, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm starting to go. T. Clark's in the process of reading 3 different books. What 3 books, T. Clark? And Mecca needs to start reading again. You've been having issues finding stuff that would attract your attention. So I already talked about Foreign Affairs. That's a good current affairs magazine to read. Doesn't mean everything that you read in there is... it doesn't mean everything that you read in there is gospel. But if you sort of want a modern and fairly well-researched perspective on things, that's a good place to start. And they also have book reviews. So to give you an example of some of the book reviews in Foreign Affairs, I read one called The Resistible Rise of Vladimir Putin, which does 3 different books. And other than just saying this was a good book or this wasn't a bad book, I got this entire history of post-Soviet Russia. Maybe not so much about, Gorbachev would still be Soviet Russia, but, sort of this transition from Gorbachev to Yeltsin to Putin. What are the forces that have allowed him to become the figure that he is? There are some people who just say that he's an accidental figure. The review points out that, accidental figures of history do not retain power this long. And so in addition to getting a book review and possibly a recommendation for reading based on what you may be interested in, you get a fairly well-researched analysis of the topic that's under discussion. Alan Blinder did a review of a book which was on economics. So this is a person who is a working economist who is reviewing one of the economics books in there. So you're getting people who know their stuff, and they're putting the book in context. It's not just, I saw this movie and I didn't like it, but it's more like, I saw this movie, here's the tradition that it's in, this is what the movie is talking about, here's how it brings out those themes, here's how it maybe could have brought out themes that either they didn't do for some conscious reason which I don't understand, or maybe they missed. It's the kind of review that I like. I don't like opinion reviews. I definitely like ones which engage with the material as seriously as it can and, bring insight. So, Foreign Affairs is definitely fairly heavy reading though, so I'm not going to blame you if you decide you want to start with something different. But as always, read what you're interested in. Used to be any type of fantasy book that would keep your attention, but lately it's been pretty difficult to find authors who don't try to make overarching stories too large and focusing on interpersonal relationships, i.e. the drama, with the focus most of the book. Sounds like you need to look into getting a subscription to that magazine if it's available locally. Well, again, take a look at your local library because it's actually pretty good. It's a pretty good journal, but I know it's available in my local library, but not my university library, surprisingly enough. And if you're looking for some fiction, I'm a big fan of Neil Stephenson. If you like historical elements, I would recommend The Baroque Cycle. It's really long, but I think he does it well. If you want science fiction, he did a book called Snow Crash, which is fun. All right, man, I am losing so many viewers, but that's fine. I'm having fun with you guys. I hope you are too. So, I know everybody says don't look at the numbers, and I generally don't, but it's always nice to get a little bit of an indication in terms of where you're going. I'm definitely being a little indulgent at the moment in terms of just, going through the maps. But if you guys are finding this boring, definitely let me know, and I can do a little bit more action in the game. But I think there's some value in going over these lists, because again, let's remember how we introduced this. This is about taking the complexity of this game. Everything that this game shows you is relevant, but just like having, let's say, a council of 15 different advisors all telling you what you should do. Let's imagine you're a Twitch streamer and you've got 15 different people trying to tell you, what's the next game that you should play, or, what tone of voice should you use? Should you have a face cam or not? How much makeup do you put on, if you're a guy or a girl? What clothes should you wear? Should you look for the sponsorship and things like that? At some point, there is signal and there's noise, and you need to find a way of distinguishing between the two. And so in this case, the game does that through these through visual depictions. In this case here, it's through these different menus here. So we talked about cultures, and obviously culture has had a very large impact on history, and so it's worth going into that. Although its influence is maybe not necessarily as explicit in the case of the mechanics of the game. Act like R.A. said. Yeah, you mentioned R.A. Salvatore. Makes a bit of a shift between liking his stuff and disliking. Well, I mean, a guy with such a large body of work as well, I suspect probably not all of them are going to be favorites, but I haven't read as much R.A. Salvatore as I probably should. Economy. Now, you would think that this is the menu that I only care about, but in this case here, this one I kind of take a little bit more of a perspective in terms of what I particularly am interested in. So green is representing a healthier economy. As is probably not surprising, these large empires have got the most robust economies. You can sort of see the Eastern world very poor, as was historically the case, or as is possibly still the case right now. Here, my capital is doing quite well. My capital's here. Eventually, we'll move it to Paris. So Paris is quite well off financially. There's sort of sections that are well off, but certainly we can do better. If you want just a quick view, I don't know how this works as far as history is concerned, but it does seem to be that Charlemagne's share of the empire is a little bit better off materially than Middle Francia. And of course, the Muslim countries are doing quite well financially. So this is, of course, a period of history where there's no assurances that the West becomes dominant. T. Clark's reading a biography of John Adams. About the gunpowder plot and how the Irish saved civilization. Actually, my aunt recommended that to me when she called me for my birthday. All sound like really good ones, T. Clark. So yeah, I don't mean this one. It's kind of funny, even though I am an economist by my studies. There's not a whole lot for me to say on this. Like, clearly, there's a couple ways that you can handle it, which is double down on your high production areas. So you send your chancellor to collect taxes in them, or alternatively, you go to all of these weaker areas and those are going to be the places where it's the cheapest to build up, right? So I go to my poorest counties and I start building things like towns, which will improve the taxes that I can claim from them. And it's a little bit more situational. Now, Independent Realms isn't the only political map that you can use. Another one that's actually very helpful for division would be the de jure duchies and de jure kingdoms maps. So in this case here, there's a number of titles that we can create. Right now we can make 8 different titles, although we don't have the money for it. And what this is going to give us is basically a way of dividing up our holdings. So you have a domain size, so that's the number of individual holdings that you can have, and then you have a vassal limit. So this is the number of people who are account rank or above, who are basically directly report to you. Clearly, you can't manage everything. If you have too many individual realms, you're not going to manage them effectively. If you have to manage too many vassals, people are going to get up to stuff that you don't want them to do. You can't manage them effectively. That was the reason why Aquitaine and Bourbon became independent, is because my vassal limit was too high, and they saw an opportunity to achieve their own independence, so they took it. In this case here, a nice way of decreasing the number of vassals that you have, this is a big problem that we ran into in the previous playthrough, was too many vassals, is to sort of give these higher titles to loyal vassals, which means that the counts under them are then their direct vassals. And so this is a way that you can take a very large realm
and you can just sort of piece out all of these different holdings to other people. And what that ultimately gives you is it gives you a bit of an organization structure. So in this case, I'm able to farm out the individual. Let's go back to our favorite county of Dijon, right? So the Count of Dijon is currently one of my vassals, and I'm over my limit. So what I can do here is I can take a look at the duchy. In this case, it's part of the Duchy of Burgundy, so if I create the Duke of Burgundy, or if I assign that title to somebody, I don't really need to worry about the Count of Dijon, the King of, is it Auxerre, Nevers, Charlotte, Macon, and Chalon. Again, I'm not very good at the pronunciation of these different provinces or counties. But in this case here, this is potentially 5 different counts who all of a sudden get rolled into this one duke. And as long as I can keep that duke under control, I don't necessarily need to worry about his underlings. So it's an effective way of managing the territory. Of course, everybody wants more territory. Everybody wants more titles. So in this case here, you need to find that balance in making sure that you don't make potential rivals so powerful that you're going to run into problems later, but you don't want to be so greedy that you mismanage your realm. Like in the end, Augustus Caesar is a very fascinating and important figure in history, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't too worried about the zoning laws for aqueducts, even in Rome, where he's going to be spending most of his time. Hey, Notenarch. How's everybody going? Shattered World. Are you talking about, I did have my previous playthrough, which kind of got blown up by the bug, so if that's what Shattered World is referenced to. We're just taking the time at the beginning of the game to sort of talk about it. I haven't really talked a lot about gameplay, but I really want to stress this idea of the management of information. Because I think that's kind of the core of making some sense of games like this, particularly the Paradox titles. It's definitely not been one that has been favorable to a high view count, but for those of you who just want to hear my voice, this will be a good stream for you. For those of you who want Crusader Kings 2 content, you'll probably be able to get that in, let's say, 1.5 hours. We are playing as Charlemagne, though, so that should be hopefully interesting. So in this case, this is not just a political map, but this is a de jure political map. So this is by law, as opposed to a de facto political map. So in this case, the de facto political map says that there are 2 kingdoms, West Francia and Middle Francia. And this is just the game's modeling of the fact that Charlemagne and his brother Carloman had to share this kingdom or empire. In this case, you can't have the Empire of Francia and then 2 components inside. Well, you can, but the game can't model the conflict that particularly well that way. So in this case, they just created 2 separate kingdoms, and they just gave it some special rules in terms of what happens when one of the brothers dies. Again, you've got de jure kingdoms, so where we were talking a little bit about sort of moving up these different... like taking these different units, you've got too many holdings, you've got too many vassals, you need to divide your kingdom. Again, you can create kingdom titles, and you can sort of roll up a bunch of dukes into a kingdom, and then you can give that kingdom to another person. Personally, I like having a lot of dukes and keeping the king titles for myself, but that can create a certain degree of antagonism between you and your vassals. So there's a cost to doing that, although I found it very effective in the House of Rose playthrough. So I'm going to keep trying to do that, although we ran into some problems when we did that before. Be right back? Okay, sure thing, Jesse Quill. I won't talk about anything too important in the game, I hope. Shattered World is a mod that makes every single county independent. It's pretty fun to see how it all develops. That's amazing. Yeah, I don't know, Arc. I don't actually run any mods. I'll probably wind up doing Game of Thrones at some point. But right now I'm just kind of talking about this idea of how to make sense of Crusader Kings 2, and I spend a lot of time. I think one of the things that attracts people to these games a lot are the maps. They're definitely really good looking, and it's a way that I kind of start trying to make sense of the game. The final map in terms of these de jure divisions is the de jure empires, so you can sort of see the world a little bit more as we know it. So we've got Francia, Hispania, Italia. This is the Byzantine Empire as it should be rather than as it currently is. We've got Tartaria, Russia, Scandinavia. I think Nice, yeah, it's part of that empire. So in this situation here, and of course Jesse Quill's just gone away, but we've got Germania. But in this case here, this is a little... You can obviously give away the titles for empire, but by doing that you create independent political realms. So generally you want to kind of keep the empires to yourself. But it's... in some ways this can give you a little bit of an idea in terms of where you want to go, right? I know that I can claim Brittany in the top corner and I'll do well. And do I follow the historical path and take and create Italia? Well, I mean, it was the Kingdom of Italy that gets made. Do I follow the path that you'd normally expect for Charlemagne, which is to go and take Italy, or Lombardy, I guess as it's called right now? Do I go to Saxony first? Do I maybe instead just try and focus on creating the German Empire? You know, these are decisions that you get to make on your own. But if you're interested about the acquisition of land, this is not a bad way of looking at it. Now, the thing here is that the de jure empires do change. If you hold something and you've incorporated it in an empire for a sufficiently long time, that becomes part of the de jure empire. And at that point, if somebody takes that land from you, you have a rightful claim to take it back. So this isn't, this view is interesting, but it's also not fixed either. It's a slow one to change for sure, but if you're particularly effective at holding territory, or if there's a lot of... Well, so if you're effective at holding territory, you'll still see this shift. If you're not good, if there's a lot of war, there's a lot of contests, and the borders are quite a bit more fluid, then you're not necessarily going to see as big of a change in these things. But go to Kiev and steal their chickens. For a second you thought I was doing Shattered World, and yes, you get to hear your lovely voice talk about stuff, only this time you actually understand me. Thank you, Unknown Arc. Now these next ones are a little bit more gameplay oriented, so it's not like it's not like you can sit down and sort of do a map. Well, actually I'm sure there's political scientists who can probably draw maps like this of revolt risk. So in this case here, the game is just telling you, it's taking the number and it's turning it into a shade. So you can see that generally my holdings are quite stable, with the exception of the territories which kind of still consider themselves to belong to Brittany, and so likely they are going to have some degree of dissatisfaction there. Clearly the southern kingdoms also are having a little bit more trouble. And what you may notice, it's one thing for me to make a claim that culture and unrest are related, but let's just take a look, right? So the places that are Frankish don't have revolt problems. The places that consider themselves Bretons do. Likewise, you've kind of got this Muslim conquest of Christian nations, right? So these places are Catholic, but they're currently serving under Islamic well, what is this? Sultanate. So, likewise, man, this seems to be the case for everybody. All of the visuals are screwed up. Thanks, Paradox. But yeah, as you can see, a conquered population is going to be more likely to revolt. Again, I have a slightly better time of things than my brother, because you can see that I have a relatively stable realm, whereas he's got the majority of nations which are, or not nations, number of counties which are a different culture from mine. And so, in this case here, I have certain advantages over my brother. In addition to the fact that also historically I wind up becoming king. But Chicken Kiev sounds amazing right now. What was that about priorities? If someone could draw one of those maps, you imagine you wouldn't want to look at it, seeing how messy the introduction of uncontrollable social media is lately. Yeah, well, I mean, just because somebody can come up with a measure of revolt risk doesn't mean that they're going to be right. Obviously, there's some people who may have predicted the Arab Spring. There's certainly people who advocated the war in Iraq, saying that when they see a functioning democracy in Iraq, that other nations will want to adopt these democratic ideals as well. And so some of those people will say this is a prediction of the Arab Spring. But on the other hand, too, you can say it's like, well, are you making just a generalization, or is there some predictive power behind what you've claimed here, right? Like I can say, the world will be struck by a meteor. And like, over a long enough period of time, that'll probably be true. If on the other hand I say, there's going to be a meteor which strikes my house in exactly 15 minutes, that's a fairly precise prediction, and if I get that right, people are going to notice. Oh, hang on. To add to that, the cultural opinion modifier takes cultural families into account as well. Bretons who are Celtic will dislike you more than Frisians who are Germanic and like the Franks. That's a really good point, Carney. I lost Unknown Arc at some point again. Yeah. So I'll roll back a little bit on this. But basically the idea here is just because I do believe that there are probably political scientists who are fairly confident in their measures of political instability in a region, and so you could color code regions of saying that things are really unstable. I suspect probably this part of the map would be very unstable, right? This part of the map, less so. Hey, Captain Bear 2. We're taking our time getting started on a new playthrough of Crusader Kings 2, partially because there was a little bit of a request to go over some introductory material. I believe the requester is currently away from the keyboard at the moment, but we get a chance to talk about all the different maps before we start making some decisions. But again, so where in principle this sort of exists in the real world, I consider this to be a little bit more related to the game mechanics. And as Carney made a really good point here, is that again, it's one thing to call yourself a Breton or a Frank, but what is this game? The game overall is Crusader Kings 2 by Paradox, both the publisher and their development studio. If you know that it's Crusader Kings... Sorry, there's a lot that can be unpacked in that question, so I don't mean to be flippant. If you already know it's Crusader Kings 2, the specific game that I'm going to be playing is as Karl as West Francia, also known as Charlemagne. So we are the king of this blue kingdom up here, and eventually we're going to be stealing Middle Francia from my brother and try and do what we do every Friday night, try to take over the world. So if you're curious about what Crusader Kings 2 is right now, you've actually come at a good time, because we're going to be talking a little bit about the game and how to get started in it. It's a very complicated game. It's very fun for that reason, but can also be very difficult to get into, so I'm taking the advantage of a fresh start in Crusader Kings 2 to maybe go over how I think about the game, which menus I find most useful. The big thing for me is that the visual depiction of information is probably the biggest key to understanding this game and making effective decisions, and then taking that as a groundwork will sort of break apart the game into convenient slices, which will allow us to try and understand the menus as we encounter them. Brotherly love in the old days, exactly. So the next one, I really like this. This is more so a digital penis meter or measurer for me, rather than being anything that I can really take to the bank with as far as the game is concerned. But let's face it, I'm the Carling dynasty, so what I want to see is Carling spread all over the map. The more Carlings around there, the bigger my EP. But realistically, this is just going to tell you who's related to each other. You're going to have an easier time with family members, usually. Some family members can be rivals as well. But basically the idea here is that, as is of course historically the case, you have a lot of intermarriage. Marriage is the way that you form alliances in this game, and you're going to have an easier time working with your family members, who also incidentally are going to be more likely to be the same culture, and so on and so forth. Then you are, I suspect the Carlings are probably not going to have a lot in common with the Abbasids. So, in addition to the fact that it's something of a measure of your success to just see your dynasty sort of slowly engulf the map, there are some practical benefits here. But again, this is just comes back to one of those political measures of the map, which is to say that what family owes everything. So it's somewhat like Total War, just more complex. Yes, the combat is not as complex. The combat is just a bunch of numbers being thrown at each other. It's a little bit more... In some ways, you can sort of think of it as a Middle Ages dating simulator. So it's got RPG elements. You've got, your different stats: diplomacy, martial, stewardship, intrigue, and learning. I'll go into these a little bit later. And you very much focus on this succession of individual rulers as time goes by. rather than... So this is why I'm focusing on dynasties right now. If you don't have a legitimate heir, then your playthrough is over. Otherwise, it just ends in 1453. Just arbitrarily, just the menu comes up and you see your score. So in this case here, this game is all about the family. And it kind of reflects the feudal system compared to a game like Europa Universalis 4, which is a little bit more focused on the nation state. And in this case, you can very happily be a small count in a big empire and have a satisfying playthrough, whereas in Europa Universalis 4, because we're now worrying a little bit more about sort of this great infrastructure of these great states in the early modern period moving up to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, what you tend to see in Europa Universalis 4, which is sort of the follow-up to this title, although it was the first title, Crusader Kings was made after the Europa series. What you will see in that game is small nations sort of get gobbled up by larger ones. It's somewhat true here, but you'll notice that it's much more fragmented, and a kingdom is built up of each of these individual dukes who hold duchies. You can have kingdoms and empires, but again, in this case, it's a very narrow focus. And, the old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Just because you want to raise taxes doesn't mean that your vassals are going to agree to that. So you need to focus a lot on your relationships with people and sort of the political maneuvering of handling these sorts of things. Unknown Arc loves the marriage aspect of this game and the jokes there's so many jokes that can be made about this. And he's here for chalk, not that at all. Canterbury loves Total War combat. The AI is so drunk. Sent 50 men to guard a city next to your capital and took it back with 230 men. Odds were 5-1 your way. That's awesome. I haven't played that much of the Total War series, but I keep getting recommended it. I've got the medieval one. And by the way, that was just through chance. Obviously, it's cool that it's something related to these games. But I haven't really put any time with it. I've also played Rome 2, and I think I'm finally getting what Total War is about. So, can't say I'll play it on stream, but I'm interested in it. So, next up we have opinions. So that's actually not a bad way to introduce this idea. And I was talking about the individual interactions you have with your counts and your your counts, your dukes, all of your vassals. Here's the way that you measure that. So, in this case, I know that the Duke of Aquitaine has a negative opinion of me, namely because he hates me. He kind of likes me because of my personal diplomacy, and I have Gavelkind succession, he's my chancellor, so on and so forth. So there's some things that he likes about me, but just generally you can see right now that there's a modifier on here which says he hates me, which gives a negative 100 modifier. T. Clark's only played Shogun 2. That's one that I've only ever heard good things about. I think you also said that feudal Japan was your big interest. Or was that CPO Williams who said that? Sorry, I'm getting all my viewers mixed up. It's not my intention to do so, but you all lead fascinating lives and it's hard to keep track. So next up we have direct vassals. Remember how I was talking about how it's sometimes a little bit hard to sort of keep track of who owns what and how to break up your kingdom. As you can see here, if I do the comparison between de jure duchies and direct vassals... Oh, actually, you know what? I don't think that's a good comparison. Yeah, that doesn't change. Trying to find a good example of this principle in play. In any case, this is a way that you can visually keep track of your vassals rather than, let's say, bringing up this menu here and taking a look at people. And there's not a whole lot else to say about that. Again, this is a little bit more. This is less about, let's say, geographic features. So again, we're not looking at terrain. In this case, we're looking about your individual relationship with people, or alternatively, the relationships between the respective realms. Trade zones aren't really a factor right now, but what you'll eventually start seeing is these trade zones from the merchant republics. So we've got Venice, Genoa should be here somewhere. Oh god, I can't remember where the other one is. It is Genoa, right? Anyways, it doesn't really matter. But in this case, we've got we have a merchant republic here. They're eventually going to start building trade zones, and we can see that reflected on the map. As a feudal realm, I don't build trade zones, so Again, similar idea here. You've got family trade zones, so you can say who owns what. This is just a representation of the ownership of commerce, rather than, let's say, something like the territory. Commerce is maybe less of a tangible thing to hold on, so you'll just see control of these different sea zones. And then finally, this is a new thing that they brought in, but you can do a measure by government. So in this case, you've got tribal areas, kind of most of Scotland is tribal, you've got Ireland tribal, all of the eastern world is tribal. You've got a feudal system in India. You've got Iqta, which is effectively feudal Islam. And you've got a couple here, but basically you got, sort of as you might expect, tribal governments in Western Africa, the parts that aren't held by Muslims. And then you've got, if I were running the latest expansion, you'd also see nomadic systems. Oh, I forgot to reset my checks. Somebody just followed, and I don't know who. Let me reload my Twitch alerts. I'm sorry for that. Let me just take a look here.